Hi, it's Dr. Centeno, and I had missed some of the questions for the last Facebook Live I just recorded, which was on PICL outcomes and HEDS versus normal ligament patients. So I thought I'd get to those questions. Apologize for missing those. And so this is just going to be answering some questions here from the Facebook PICL group. So first question is Stephanie. Can the PICL treatment correct the cervical curve, asking for EDS patients? Correcting the curve, I think, takes two things at once. If there's no instability, you can correct the curve via curve restoration. So that's CBP Chiropractic. Idealspine.com is where you find those providers. If you do have instability on top of that, then injecting those supraspinous, interspinous ligaments at the back of the neck can help support the curve in addition to curve restoration therapy through chiropractic biophysics or CPB. So the answer is yes, but it's supporting another therapy. Oleg, another question. Is there any data on whether or how often EDS patients would have to get booster procedures due to the root being an ongoing systemic issue? No data on that right now. That's certainly possible that could happen in EDS patients, but no data on that simply because we haven't been treating a lot of EDS patients long enough, meaning that when I did the first data analysis 9 months ago, we didn't have enough EDS patients who have been treated for long enough to really make a go of the analysis. This time we did have enough EDS patients that have been treated for a year or more. But as far as a very large group of EDS patients treated for 3 years or 5 years, we don't have that. Diana, multi-part question. Number one, other than EDS, what other variables are they stratifying data by pandas, osteophyte, and atlas, who's getting worse after a PICL? We haven't looked, well, I should say that differently. I've looked at whether or not there seems to be any relationship between a pandas, osteophyte on the atlas, clavoaxial angle, grab oaks, presence of cervical medullary syndrome, etc., and failures, and the answer seems to be no at this point, meaning that we have as many of those things present in failures as successes. So we don't really have any information on that. My personal opinion is that the few patients that have gotten worse after this procedure are the same patients that'll get worse after surgery, because they are extensively centrally sensitized. And I think I've talked about that quite a bit on Facebook Lives, meaning that those are the same patients who I would put in that fragile leg category. So they're generally getting worse after physical therapy. They're getting worse after an aggressive massage. They're getting worse after turning their neck the wrong way, et cetera, et cetera. So the fragile leg patients are the fragile leg patients, and the goal is not to get into that category, right? The goal is to get this all treated early enough so that you don't morph into that fragile leg category and become completely disabled by this. So that's the best I can say there. And then Diana's second question, when he says that at 7-10 patients have success with PICL, what does that mean in terms of percentage of improvement? With regard to defining success, we're talking about a patient who is reporting 50% or more improvement in their pain or function. So that's how I would define success. Now, obviously, that's different for different patients, right? You've got patients who are highly functional and are just not doing certain things. And success is different for that patient than someone who is non-functional, can't do anything. So again, I think in my last Q&A, I talked about a chiropractor that we treated from Canada who needed to lie down for 23 hours a day. He can only be up for 1 hour Now we reverse that, where he could be up for the whole day, other than lying down for 15 minutes for 4 times during the day, or a total of 1 hour. Now, that's not normal at all, but that's a dramatic functional improvement for that guy, because he went from completely non-functional to being functional with caveats. Then Diana, number 3, if we hadn't had a DMX but are seeing Dr. Rosa and he's already approved us for PICL based on existing imaging, do we need the DMX? You still need the DMX. We don't, well, let's put it this way. I think, as I've said lots of times during these Facebook Lives, the most likely study to qualify someone is a DMX. Then less likely, but still possible, is an upright MRI. And then even less likely, but still possible, is a static, prone, or really supine MRI. And what I mean by that is that, let's say we have we take 10 patients, and those 10 patients have had a DMX, and all of whom have some sort of upper cervical instability. 7 to 8 and 10 times that DMX is going to show it. Then we get into the upright MRI. Now we're down into 4 or 5 times out of 10. And if we then go to our routine supine static MRI, we're down in 2 or 3 out of 10. So it's possible that an upright MRI may show something that qualifies. It's just less likely. Number 4, how can we start to restore a curve on our own at home in a safe way? You know, Diane, I definitely don't recommend that. I recommend that you see a professional, a chiropractic biophysics professional at idealspine.com, simply because this is not an easy job of curve restoration. And then next question, Magda. What is the pelvic ring misalignment instability impact on PICL procedure success? How independent are they? They're probably not independent. They are definitely linked. About 1 in 4 of our PICL patients has an SI joint or pelvic ring instability issue. So we are having to go ahead and treat that at the same time. So they're definitely linked, in my opinion. Then Magda, second question, what is the TMJ misalignment impact on the PICL procedure? That's more of a bystander, meaning that we tend to see patients with craniocervical instability, or CCI, develop TMJ problems, but we also treat that concurrently as well. So it's about 1 in 4 as well, generally not usually the same patients. But we treat the pelvic ring and the TMJ quite a bit when we're treating CCI with PICL. Then the next question, Paul, can you do a blog video on TMJ misalignment distortion and its implications for CCI patients? I have a blog on that, I think, already, but I'm certainly happy to do a Facebook Live and a video on that. That's a good topic. Myria, M-Y-R-C-I-A, Marcia, maybe. I apologize, I'm butchering your name here. Can PICL bring C1C2 overhang down to 0? I don't know about down to 0. We've certainly seen it brought down to normal, meaning that normal is going to be anything under 2 millimeters. And we've seen many patients get at that point to under 2 millimeters with regard to C1C2 overhang. As far as 0, I've seen 1 or 2 people where it's probably close to 0, but 0 is a hard number, meaning that the average person walking around probably doesn't have 0 overhang. They have less than 2 millimeters of overhang. And then second question, I've been told by another doctor that my C1 is tilted. Is it something observed in patients with CCI? Yes, we certainly see that. Also, you'd want to look at whether or not there's also scoliosis, meaning side bend in the cervical spine, because that also could be a part of that, meaning causing the tilt from the bottom up. Kevin, what is the maximum improvement someone can expect in reality? Is there ever a chance for those of us without EDS to be back to 100% or 70-90% at the top? Is there a point where too much causes more issues or will it not just do anything positive or negative? Kevin, I think that the answer to that question goes to what I've been saying on Facebook Live now for quite some time, and that is that the deeper the hole, the harder it is to fill. And what I mean by that is for patients that are extremely disabled, I think they can expect less functional improvement, meaning they're not going to get, it's unlikely that they're going to get back to normal. For patients that are highly functional, much more likely than that they're going to get back to normal. So again, I'd already talked about the chiropractor who got back to the point where he was only having to lie down for a total of an hour during the day after needing to lie down for 23 hours a day. So that's not normal, but that's pretty darn good. Now, on the other end of that was a judo master who was already pretty functional after a car crash, got back to grappling and doing judo competition, but she was much more functionally able to begin with. And then Oleg, lately, if I do work with moving around a bunch, home improvement type stuff, where I kneel up, down, have to look around, do stuff with hands out in front, not only my neck symptoms flare, but pelvic plus legs too. Pelvic floor stuff and legs, especially right leg, get a tight pulling, tingling in toe, tight feeling calf, etc. How does this connect to my CCI? Yeah, Oleg, we see that quite a bit. Realize that it's not just CCI patients. Patients with chronic neck pain frequently develop chronic low back and pelvic ring issues. And that's because of the stabilization mechanism within the low back goes offline. And by going offline, that then leads to low back instability and pelvic ring instability, irritating nerves that go down the leg, etc. Daniel, does the post-PICL recovery get easier with subsequent PICLs, or is there no correlation between the number of PICLs and the difficulty of recovery? Yeah, Daniel, we generally do see that recovery gets easier as the patient gets better. But again, in general, meaning that not everyone is obviously the same there. Janelle, what is T4 syndrome? Centeno mentioned to me in my first appointment that I may have that. Is there anything I should be doing to treat T4 syndrome in between PICL treatments, or is it better to wait until later? Janelle, what that means is that the afferent nerves from the arm and hand come in through the thoracic outlet and then go into the spinal cord, dive down the T4, and then go up. So all it means is that there is an upper thoracic problem leading to issues in the hand, and that we need to continue to treat that T3-4 area to get that hand or arm better. So no need to do anything else right now. We'll be treating that with all the CCI issues. Jarden, is there a plan to offer PICL with cultured stem cells outside of USA? Or Jaden, sorry, my bad, Jaden. No, not right now. The equipment necessary to do PICL and the infrastructure just isn't there in the Grand Cayman facility that we work out of, where we can do culture expanded cells. So no, that's not available. So no plans at this point. It's only a US procedure. And then Edward, it's got two questions. One, what does hyperextension, tilted up anterior, tilted down posterior of the atlas indicate? What structures are damaged in this scenario, and can those structures be treated successfully with PICL? I would need to know more about what you're discussing, but if you're talking about the atlas being tilted back like this, then that could be a disruption to the anterior ligaments that go from the bottom of the atlas down in the front, and or the posterior ligaments here at the ventrodural ligament. So both of those would be treated pretty easily during a PICL. And then question number two, the PICL reduces symptoms in 70% of patients. In the video discussing what happens to the other 30% of patients who don't have symptomatic relief, 4 and 6 had improvements in instability, and what percentage of total PICL patients do instability measurements not change after a reasonable amount of time that passed? that's not something I've looked at, meaning that we're focused on symptomatic relief. That analysis that you're discussing was simply trying to see whether it was warranted to do a second PICL procedure in someone who didn't get symptomatic improvement, and what percentage of those patients had gotten improvement in their metrics or their measurements without symptomatic improvement. I'm gonna guess that approximately 1 in 5 of our patients, but I've not looked at this in a more regimented way, are not getting really any improvement in their DMX metrics with PICL. Okay, guys, so I wanted to make sure I got those questions because I had missed those. Dan Semrad was nice enough to send me a heads up email that I had missed those important questions in my last Facebook Live recording. So here are those questions. Thank you so much for watching. Again, I'll try to do another Facebook Live here. Well, we got a live question here because I am live right now, but in the US, it's crazy times, 1:26 a.m. in Denver, but I must have a UK patient here. So I'll answer Emily's question since I am online right now. Emily Balfour, Algocells UK has stopped treating CCI patients, stating not enough evidence. Any idea why? If this will change anytime soon? Those of us in the UK are stuck. Yeah, Emily, it's a good question. I think as I had said before, and I'll say this again, and I've been seeing some stuff on Facebook that's concerning. The treatment of the upper cervical spine is extremely specialized. The only place that has that level of expertise in spades is Centeno-Schultz Clinic in Colorado. While there's some other clinics that we have tried to use to treat things like the upper cervical facets, etc., those clinics don't have extensive experience in treating the upper cervical spine. So to them, this is all high-risk stuff, simply because injection of 0-1 is considered to be a high-risk injection. So I had seen, I think, one of the groups on Facebook talking about, well, this site can treat you, and that site can treat your upper neck, and this site can treat your upper neck. Really not the case. The only place that we have is Centeno-Schultz Clinic. And what I mean by that is any other place is not going to have that level of experience in injecting the upper cervical spine. So for example, one of the other places outside of Centeno-Schultz may have done a dozen or 2 dozen or 3 dozen 0-1 facet injections in their entire career. Maybe they're up to 50. At Centeno-Schultz, we've done thousands. So that's the problem, is we're not going to find doctors outside of Centeno-Schultz that are very comfortable doing these procedures because they've done them a lot. We're always going to find docs who don't do or treat this area very often and are concerned about the risk-benefit ratio. Now, when you've done this 1,000 times, the risk-benefit ratio becomes pretty clear. You've done it 1,000 times or 2,000 or 3,000. You've never had a complication related to a 0-1 injection. Hence, you feel very, very comfortable treating 0-1. But if you've done this only 3 dozen times and it's a high-risk injection, then you're going to start to wonder about what the risk-benefit ratio looks like in that procedure. So regrettably, the only place on earth that has done these procedures like a 0-1 facet injection thousands of times is Centeno-Schultz. That's it. That's all we've got in Colorado. Any other place is not going to have the requisite experience to feel comfortable doing these procedures on a routine basis. And that's not PICL, right? Because PICL isn't done at all in Europe. It's only done in the US. I'm just talking about upper cervical posterior injections now. Even those are rarefied air for even the most experienced injectionist out there. So you're not going to find a site that's done that thousands of times that doesn't exist in the entire world right now. So that's all Centeno-Schultz. Okay, guys, I'm going to sign off here. And thank you so much for all these great questions. And I will try to do another one of these while on the road here over the next couple of weeks. Obviously, I'll be back in the office in a couple of weeks, and then I'll get back to doing these routinely once or twice a week. Thank you.